Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this reading part of the 2023. We're so glad to be together tonight with the Poetry Society of Vermont. My name is Michelle Singer. I'm the Adult Programs Coordinator for the Kellogg-Hubbard Library. And we are supported in PoemCity by Vermont Humanities, by the National Life Group, and by the Hunger Mountain Co-op. And we extend our thanks to those groups for the support of PoemCity. PoemCity wouldn't be what it is without our community partners, and a big part of that is the Poetry Society of Vermont. They help really keep our poetry community strong in this state, and we're really happy to be gathering with them tonight. And with that, I will pass it over to Bianca.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Michelle, and for Kellogg-Hubbard Library and the amazing efforts of PoemCity, which has really taken such a beautiful leap this year with the anthology that is out. So my name is Bianca Amira Zanella. I use she or they pronouns, and I am honored to be the president of the Poetry Society of Vermont this year. However, I am simply one person among many, one poet among a very long line. Ever since 1947, poets in Vermont have been gathering and have been this Poetry Society of Vermont in sharing space and uplifting each other in the writing and crafting of our beautiful observations of the world. One of the long-lasting aspects of Poetry Society of Vermont is our annual publication, The Mountain Troubadour, which if you are a member of PSOV, you can publish in and receive a free copy when it arrives in print. And it's also for sale if you're not yet a member. But we obviously are encouraging everyone to become members tonight because we want to be in community with each other. And we welcome both writers at at the beginning stages of their career, at all along this spectrum. So if you not yet identify as a poet, I think everyone has that capability, and we're so happy to have everyone with us today. So thank you all. If we want to dive right into poetry, we certainly can, because that is what we all are here for today. I feel like I'm fighting just a little bit of a cough here, so I might not go up first, but I want to thank everyone. I want to just thank as well our executive council of Poetry Society of Vermont. George Longnecker is on, and he's a past president of PSOV, so I want to thank George. And I also want to give a special shout out to Elizabeth McCarthy, who has been really crucial and just a wonderful asset in redesigning our website, which will be launching very soon. So thank you. And I also thank you everyone for listening and for being really active participants in channeling our own creativity together as a collective. So without further ado, are we ready for some poems? So I always run open mic with some heat and some fire. So I am going to encourage, I know Michelle just put in the chat to limit some background noise, but I'm going to encourage us all to unmute here just in a minute, just to practice our fire and practice our heat, and to just rub our hands together. And we're going to just create our own little spark of creativity, spark of light, and spark of applause as well. So rub those hands together, and then I'm going to invite us to just put that heat right to our own heart. And take a nice deep breath in, and just feel that. That's what we want to give to every reader tonight, and we'll give that with love, with applause, and with that fire from our bellies. So thank you all so much. Let's get ready for some poetry. Awesome. So Elizabeth, if you feel comfortable debuting us off, that would be wonderful, and I can kind of ease my throat here. So Elizabeth will kick us off, and D. Avery or Deanna Avery will be on deck, which just means next. So I have the pleasure of introducing Elizabeth McCarthy from Walden, Vermont. And I can't help but think of Henry David Thoreau with Walden, right? So Elizabeth is over there, retired from teaching a couple of years ago and turned to poetry really when the pandemic closed the world and time became a windfall. And she's also an online member of Lockdown Poets of Aberdeen in Scotland and a beautiful member of PSOV. And her chapbook, Winter Vole, was just published in 2022 by Finishing Line Press. Who will also be publishing, yes, David, we're going to raise the roof on that. Who will also be publishing her chapbook, Hard Feelings, next year. So please unmute and give a beautiful, fiery welcome round to Elizabeth McCarthy.
Oh, wow. Thank you very much. I feel very welcome. I'd like to also second what Bianca said about joining the Poetry Society of Vermont. I found the last couple of years it to be just a wonderful creative community, really supportive of poetry. So I'm really happy I found you all. I brought 4 poems. I don't know if that's too long. We can see how much time they take, but the first poem I'd like to read it's in part of this beautiful anthology, PoemCity. I'm just so impressed with this book from Rootstock Publishing and PoemCity. It's and really proud to have my poem Lost Dog published in it. And also hanging on the window on Langdon Street with other Poetry Society of Vermont's poems there. So I'll start with that. Lost Dog, for Finn. I'm wading through the shock and grief of finding our dog dead on the floor. He left us in the night as if he'd run off on the track of some wild creature drawing him deep into the woods beyond our call. Lost forever, yet still I call for him to come home to us and retrieve the joy he'd left behind, now in shreds, scattered like all the toys he ever owned. And my second poem I brought was Wooden Fence. And this I was happy to have also published in last year's PoemCity. And it was also published in, I think it was Black Coffee Review, so it's Wooden Fence. Wooden fence. Our fence slumps and leans, its white paint peeled, faded gray with mold. Every 8 feet, a cedar post barely stands on its rotting foot. Yet still, it loosely embraces our patch of grass and trees and home, where toddlers once ran wild to escape the confines of love and see what else might be beyond its invisible hold, but were stopped short by the wooden board fence that kept the nightmares out until it was time to open the gate and let them go. Thank you. And my third poem, I just wrote recently, and it was published in the Hardwick Gazette. I've come to believe for National Poetry Month, we should send poems to local papers because they're very happy to publish them, and it's a way to share poems as well. It's called Mud Season in Vermont. Here, country roads become soft traps of earth and water, deep rutted rolling paths, gateways we must pass. Is it penance for our pride, driving through purgatory where time slogs along with us in mud, this wet, dark thing called spring, for arrogance, as if we ourselves made these rolling hills of sugar maples, tapped for their lifeblood, that later turned to ruby and gold, as if it is only us who know the beauty of clear pearl droplets along strings of silk spun by spiders in the morning dew, adorning pastures and flowering meadows, where brown-eyed cows graze as they model in summer sun for roaming photographers who capture the iconic image of rural life in this land that only we call home. Now we are fallen, bogged down to the rims, held in place as we hear the chorus of spring peepers and angels on tractors heading our way. Thank you. And I have one more, which I wrote based on recent news of a lot of the storms in the South. Killer tomato. It's 3 a.m., half asleep. I check my phone. The headline read, 6 confirmed dead from large tomato that ripped through the South. Imagine that. I did, but just for a moment, picturing a killer tomato spinning its dark tail as the storm carved a path of at least 200 miles. Online photographs of death and destruction reminded me of the glossy pages in Mr. Delaney's 6th grade history book, where General Sherman told the mayor of Atlanta, "You might as well appeal against the thunderstorm as against the terrible hardships of war." The tornado probably remained on the ground for over 60 miles as it barreled into western Georgia, killing a 5-year-old boy who'll never read the children's book, Beware of the Tomato Tornado, or sit in a classroom and learn what Sherman really meant. Thank you.
I invite everyone to unmute and give that love to Elizabeth.
Woo!
Thank you. Okay.
Oh, so wonderful. Beware of the tomato tornado. Thank you.
Thank you.
So much. And I love how Elizabeth slows us down with that reading and just really allows us to be fully present with the words. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Amazing.
I'm happy to
So
get
folks
to share.
are, oh, sorry, Elizabeth.
I was just happy to be able to share, so thank you.
Thank you. If folks are just joining us, I have a running list of folks, but if you want to read, I'm sure we can squeeze folks in. So on deck is going to be the lovely Robin Joyce coming up after our next reader. So we're going to give some love. So please, we're going to welcome Dee or Deanna. I'm not sure which you prefer. Avery, which do you prefer?
How about D?
D.
D.
So Dee Avery has written poetry since they were in grade school. And when they do write, it's mostly online. So we get to hear this live online today. So please unmute and put our hands together and welcome Dee Avery.
Thanks. I'm good with she too. Just, single person here. I'm new to reading out loud, so bear with me. This is called At the Fair. Plaid-shirted old men, harnessed in suspenders, lean forward, lurch, with the lunge of muscled ponies pulling stone boats in the rake dirt arena. They mouth the simple words a pony knows, unwary Belated memories are skidded easily to the jingling tune of a DoubleTree. That's it. And then I'll read a second one that's about an old man and his horse, I guess, called Forestalling. Seed potatoes and onion sets, his planting now mostly these. Come fall, he'll gather butternuts, apple drops from straggly trees. His old horse predeceased him. Hamed collar hangs near the plow. Wonders how he'll get the wood in to keep winter fires burning now. His strength went with the leaves, and without wood or stores enough laid by, fall drifted into winter. Snow sifted from cast iron skies. Then his horse nuzzled him awake. He saw he'd never be without. The cold carried him away as his fire went out. How about a haiku?
I just want to say, I really enjoyed the rhyme and the word fall drifting into winter. I love that because I could picture the snow coming in as the fall was passing into winter. I like that word a lot.
Thank you, appreciate it. So I guess a haiku, I'll read it once and then I'll pause and read it a second time. Frost-feathered moonlight, breathless night brushed by shadow, how silent the owl. Frost-feathered moonlight, breathless night brushed by shadow, how silent the owl.
Ooh, hoo.
And I don't know what the time limit is. I could read more, but that's up to you.
Yeah, we're doing
I could go dark.
Yeah, we're doing about 8-ish minutes. So if you want to read a couple more, you have time.
All right. All right. This one is called Mommy. I am a ghost drifting formless, undead, unliving, in between, strung out at the margins. You haunt me with your memories. Leave me be. You rattling chains of your broken dreams, piecing together shards, hopes cracked and scarred like my junky arms. My babies, chanting shamans, mediums. You'd have them draw me to the side of the living. It's so hard. I don't come over. My body is crumbling dust, my heart empty, short-sighted eyes searching for one thing only, the next fix. Might be the one, the last one, an exorcism. Will you dare dream again for my children? And kind of related to that unfortunate Vermont theme, Fatal Attraction. My beloved is an itch, always gets under my skin. I don't really trust him, but I always let him in. My beloved is a liar, lies right through my veins, fills me with false promises, blinds me to my burning pain. My beloved wears a stained, torn hoodie, pulled low over dark ringed eyes, plastic wrapped powdered cake, writes the lines of his white lies. Prince of liars, my hooded hero, tells me I'm his princess heroine. I love his lines, or so I say. I lie too, just to get hooked up again. My beloved is a liar, and I suspend all disbelief and do anything he tells me, just for those moments of relief. I don't really believe the lies my beloved and I share together, nor do I admit my life's sad truth, that one day only I will lie forever. Family will lay me in my grave, they who've long since mourned, while my beloved spreads his lies to others. So read this and be warned. Thanks.
Deanna, could you send that haiku on to Bianca to send to the rest of us? That's just lovely.
Thank you. Yes, I could do that.
Wonderful. The power of a haiku, and thank you so much, Dee, for reading it twice. That is exactly what we need, right? We if we had time to listen to every poem twice, right, that would be wonderful. But thank you so much. Let's all unmute, please, and give such an honoring to those beautiful poems from Dee Avery. Thank you. And thank you for really taking us on a journey into there. Amazing. And just I'm gonna kind of sprinkle some things throughout tonight around Poetry Society. So every year we host 3 big events that are kind of traditions at this point, you could say. And so we always do a spring workshop, a summer festival, as well as a fall workshop. And so our spring workshop is coming up. It's going to be the second Saturday in May, which is May 13th, I think just before Mother's Day. And if you're not already signed up for that, or if you want to become a member, if you're not even a member yet, and then sign up for that spring workshop, please reach out to us and let us know. I'll sprinkle in the contact info in the chat as we go through it tonight. But right now we are going to have on deck the lovely Carol Collins, who will be coming up next. But right now, who is more joyful than Robin Joy? So Robin Joy is over in Montpelier and has really been kicking up a storm, hosting these amazing poetic explorations that we want to hear more about. And you can also find her work in her first chapbook, Tumbling Through, which I just am always like, where's the looking glass? I want to tumble through with you, which was published in early 2022. And she's also been featured on, oh my God, so many things, but some of them Writers for Recovery anthologies, Humana Obscura, and Mountain Troubadours, and also is part of our editorial board with PSOV. So we are lucky to have Robin on our editorial board. Especially because your perspective, Robin, really tells this intricate design of weaving personal narrative, as well as being so vulnerable with your own truth around mental illness and chronicling sexual trauma, sexual identity, addiction, and just really in the context of our current modern life and nature as well. So such an honor to have you here with us, Robin. And I'm going to put your Instagram here in the chat for folks to connect with if they want to check out any of her fun first drafts in the moment. Connect with Robin there, but we get to connect with you right now. And so please unmute and put your hands together to welcome Robin Joy.
Hi. I just want to put in a little plug. I'm doing an open mic live at Bent Nails a week from tonight. So if you want to hear more live poetry, show up from 7 to 9, and then Los Lorcas is going to do poetry infused music afterwards. So that'll be pretty cool. But today I'm reading also from the anthology. This is a beautifully put together book. It's so thick. This one is with the other Poetry Society of Vermont members on the J. Langdon window. It's called Mid-June Morning. I followed a silk line running for miles, fingers wanting to graze the trail. Little slugs raised their antenna to watch blades of grass bend under my feet until I found the matrix of a spider home covered in diamond dewdrops, flag waving within fog rising from the riverbank. I wanted to know, are slugs snails without homes? Did the spider release the silk to find its foundation or leave a trail to find its way back? Am I the spider or the slug? This is called Bookshelf. It's written after an Ocean Vuong poem. If you want to know me, look for underlined passages, starred words through maps in the margins. All of my favorite books have dog-eared pages. I promise you, I was here. I wrote this one this morning after I'm doing poem a day. So sometimes it's like 4 or 5 poems a day. It's nutty, but this is after an Elizabeth Acevedo, I think is how you say it. One of her poems. It's called The Weirdest Place I've Ever Cried. Between 100-year-old rhododendron bush and the world's tallest living tree, I crawled through the roots to see if they kissed somewhere underground, feeling for the bacteria that might eat away the anvil of my disposition. And this is called, these are a lot of actor poems. This is called Huck, Shuck, Peel. It's after a Terrence Hayes poem. And it looks pretty fancy. I don't think you can see that, but it's in a weird shape. Okay. We all have birthdays starting with 2s, on the cusp of something. I'm leaving my scent like fingerprints below the wall, above my middle, where it all lives. My eyes are sometimes dark holes of unborn ideas, and they are seeds. But let me try this again. I come from you, the youngest of a trio, but we did not build houses of straw or wood or brick, and we did not leave porridge for a greedy stranger. My fingerprints feel like strangers. I'm trying to sand them off without bleeding because the old blood tastes like gunmetal. Spring is knocking on the trap door of my mood, and I wonder if it will swing too high or scrape my face in the dirt. My stomach always dropped when we flew to California, but my brother thought the turbulence was the best part. If you ever tell my story, tell them I never left my mind, even when I lost it, even when I changed it. How are we doing on time?
You're doing good. I got so absorbed, Robin.
I'll just keep going.
You're doing good.
Is it okay to make a comment along the way, or should we wait?
I think it's okay. Is that all right, Robin?
Sure.
Well, in the previous poem, the line about if they kissed underground, the roots, I really loved that line. And then the problem is I kept thinking about it and visualizing it. And so I didn't listen as well to some of the words that came later, but I really love that. Is anyone who knows about, mushrooms and how they function would really get a lot from that line.
So nervous system under there. All right, so this one is called Pastoral Brutalism, and brutalism refers to a kind of architecture which is very sort of stark and concrete and rigid. And the idea is mixing nature with that. Pastoral brutalism. Remember when I scooped out 100 caves and planted thunder? Remember when the redwoods grew and grew until we arrived and burned them down with our venomous spit? You're showing me photos of abandoned concrete buildings, walls climbing with ivy, rusted gurneys, dirt that is haunted. They are mirrors of my ribs, cracked open, showing my house of failures, shy juncos in the stairwell nibbling on seeds of bad ideas. Remember the little one stomping through puddles to see where the water would go? There was an old car in Mr. Sawyer's backyard, tall grass that grew every spring and pushed out through the smashed windows, and it lived there until he died. I don't think I would need blood in my veins if I could somatically take in animal sounds the way the poet described. Do you remember when I put my face against the muzzle of a horse and imitated its breath with my nose, and it replied, pushing its mouth on my cheek? He told me yesterday he thought of us as gods, and I told him I was sure we would have merged by now, or that maybe we had. I recognize myself when I imagine it. Okay, let's do this one. This is called, I swear I don't know how some of you kids are still alive. Sometimes I wonder if I am passed out in the grass in the cemetery, about to wake up from this really complicated dream. Sometimes I wonder if I froze to death in the snowbank and this is the afterlife. Sometimes I wonder if I am in a psychotic state and have been mumbling and yelling incoherently for years. In the mirror, I see my cheeks opening up into younger cheeks until I am the baby of the Russian doll. In the mirror, I see my mother's chin on mine. I hear her voice in my throat and I spit on our reflection. In the mirror, I am 6. No, 26. No, 46. In the bathtub, I weep when I consider how fragile everything I'm afraid of breaking is. And if the eyes that look like mine discover the dangerous poems and I yell the safe word, do they still know I hate them? If the eyes that look like mine discover the poems that make us sentimental, do they know I'm just too guilty to leave? I swear I don't know how we stayed alive either. I swear I don't know if I am alive still. Am I still going?
If you want to do maybe one more, Robin.
Okay. Okay, let's do this a little short. Well, I'm going to end on a sad note, sorry. This is called Early May. Children in flower crowns holding ribbons around a maypole. In my town, we call it All Species Day, where I will forever and always think of Fern Feather and the way it seemed like they inspired animals and plants and everything living to glow. It happens all the time now. I want to know all of their names, and not their dead names, but the names they were called when they died.
Ooh,
Thank you.
please unmute and give it up for Robin Joy.
Nice.
Those were amazing. I saw some folks unmute. If anyone wants to add a couple of comments, I'm happy to hold space for that. Thank you so much, Robin. And yes, if you are local to Montpelier, please check her out with all these other amazing poets at the front. Robin, can you give that info just one more time for your upcoming reading that you're hosting?
Yeah, I'll put my email in the chat too. I have a mailing list so I can send you stuff. But I do one Thursday a month at the front. I feature 2 readers for half hour each. So we just had one for April, but we'll do one next month with Buffy Akash and Kim Ward. It's usually local. I had C.A. Conrad from Massachusetts kind of recently, but and then I'm also doing pop-up things like the Bent Nails open mic, and then in June, some Pride readings. So I'll drop my email down here, and it's Rabbit and Wolf is what I'm operating under as the name. And yeah, keep a lookout. There's all sorts of poem stuff happening. I'm very excited about it.
Where is the Bent Nail?
It's where Sweet Melissa's and prior to that Langdon Street Cafe used to be, on the corner of Langdon Street.
Okay. Thank
It
you.
opened during the pandemic.
I see. Okay.
Well, thank you so much, Robin. I particularly enjoyed the piece after the Ocean Vuong poem. That was really touching. Oh, well, thank you. All right, so we've got a few more folks. If you're feeling called to share, just let me know in the chat. I think we'll have time for everyone. So on deck is going to be George, but right now, are you still over in Duxbury, South Duxbury, Carol?
Yes.
Amazing. All right. So maybe we'll hear some sheet poems. I'm not quite sure what Carol will give us, but Carol is such a creative force, spinning, dyeing, carding, felting, knitting, poeting, crocheting, and more. Carol, I feel like, is the epitome of the Vermont creative poet that's just that keeps going. and I love Carol's softness and strength. So please put your hands together and unmute to welcome Carol Collins.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. This is probably the first year since the beginning of PoemCity that I didn't get involved, and I'm sad that I missed the opportunity to participate with the anthology, but life is just really crazy over here, and some things have to give from time to time. But I was born the year that Poetry Society of Vermont was founded, and so I'm really proud of the fact that it's like a sister to me, and I've been involved since 1971, and it's meant a lot in my life, and hopefully will continue. So I really, I've got a clock here, and I will watch it and not go beyond approximately 8 minutes. Take down the old fence. And that was inspired by our first reader because she read one about a fence. Take down the old sheep fence. Our sheepdog died. We sold our sheep. Now you want to take down the old sheep fence? It's all we have left to remind me of the farm I knew as a child. At least let me remember the grease on my hands at shearing time. Let me remember the ram who always came when I called his name. Let me remember the lambs jumping as they played with each other. Let me remember holding the newborn lambs in the spring. So thank you. That was written in 2002 after I sold my sheep. This is called Evie's Delight, and Evie was the dearest cousin who died maybe about 15 years ago. Evie's Delight, and you'll know when you hear it why I'm choosing this one. As I entered Evie's room at Grace Cottage Hospital, I watched her eating vanilla ice cream, grasping the Dixie cup with her crippled left thumb. She worked with difficulty to spoon the creamy white goodness into her mouth with her better right hand. My mind traveled back 50 years to an excited, bouncy Evie. She eagerly burst into the dining room of our Vermont farmhouse. My mother, father, brothers, and I were at home. It brought an exciting new dessert, but wouldn't reveal the secret. We couldn't wait. She scooped and served each of us vanilla ice cream. Carefully, she poured the maple syrup that her father had slowly boiled down from the sap of sugar maple trees on Turkey Mountain. I will never forget that night and Evie's delight. Okay. Teresa's little necklace. Okay. Daily, I wear the necklace you made, given me by your mother after you died. It's the perfect length to slip over my head. At night, I take it off and hang it on the shaker peg in my bedroom. I kiss the little necklace. I treasure it as a believer would pray over her rosary beads. My prayer is my sweet memories of you. Dark blue, light blue, green, red, white, black beads carefully strung on strong waxed linen string. The ends are knotted together 20 times, once for each year of your life. And it did not break in these 36 years. If only your linen thread could mend my broken heart. And this is for the dog lovers. Old joy herds me home. All you see is Joy's behind wobbling down the driveway every weekday morning at 7:15 sharp. At first we worry, oh no, she's gonna go into the road. And then we look down at our watches, see what time it is, and remember that this is the same time she used to go down the driveway each school day to herd the kids to the school bus. That's the problem when you have a sheepdog and only a few sheep. They don't have enough work, so they make work. So all day long, she herds our visitors in, every one of them, all the way to the house, as if they were sheep. Sometimes, when I have walked over to Grandma's house, and I am tired, needing house and home and sleep, even though she's blind. She hears my steps, comes halfway to meet me, and then she herds me home. Thank you. Okay, I'm watching the clock and I'm just gonna choose I have two to wrap it up. This one is called May is My Birthday. Each year, when May comes, I am born again like the grass, the perennials, and the seeds sprouting in the soil. Everything about every day, even the rain, says to me, be born again, grow. Here's a second chance to learn how little we know and to succeed at this growing thing called life. So the last one, healing myself. Sunlight pours into my shop from south-facing windows. I notice all the leaves of each stem of my rose geranium plant leaned a long way to press themselves against the glass to get the full benefit from the powerful sun. Only precious moments of sunshine come in between the short gray days and the long dark nights of winter. This fall, the sun gave me its gift. One day, I stood in the doorway to my room to photograph our beautiful house as sun streamed in through all the windows. Unable to go out into the fall beauty, I stood in front of my bedroom window, photographing the incrementally brightening colors of the fall foliage. I felt like the rose geranium leaves pressed tight to the window. I grew strong from the healing light. Thank you all so much for listening.
Aw, thank you, Carol. Please unmute and give it up. Aw. I feel a little bit healed as well just by hearing that poem with your own light and your glow, Carol, with all of your beauty behind you and just emanating. So thank you so much. Yes. my favorite cozy background. Amazing. Thank you. Well, we are really rocking it out with some poems, and I cannot wait to get my hands and my eyes on the PoemCity anthology. So I am excited for that. And Carol, I don't know if you saw in the chat, but Michelle says there will be another one next year. So if it aligns, we'll see you in there in 2024. Amazing. So we have George coming up, but I'm gonna do David on deck. And George Longenecker, what can I say about George? George pulled me in to the Poetry Society of Vermont, into the executive council. And so I have George to thank for that. And he's from Middlesex, Vermont, and quite a prolific poet. You're published, George, in what is it? The Atlanta Review, Whale Road Review, Seneca Review, The Mountain Troubadour, of course, and probably so many others. And has been a really strong advocate for poetry and also for community, a really strong sense of community. George really uplifts that aspect of being here in Vermont. So let's put our hands and our hearts together for George Longenecker.
Thanks, Bianca. Thanks, Michelle and the Kellogg-Hubbard Library. I was going to just listen tonight, but like I always have food in the house. I always have poems around. I was going to just listen because 3 of us PSOV members have a reading coming up on the 26th on the natural and the human world. One of our members, Tricia Knoll, author of One Bent Twig, Geza Tetralier, and I on Wednesday the 26th at 6:30. Carol, after hearing your poems, I had to read this one from my book, Star Root. Threads. I found a song sparrow trapped in twine of garden netting, held the panicked bird, her heart beating in my hand as I cut away threads that bound her. That spring, I also found a robin's nest, twigs wrapped with yellow and white thread, scavenged from a shirt or unraveled from a towel on a clothesline. When a thread unwound from my shirt button, I imagined the hands that stitched it in Bangladesh, and how that thin thread is a lifeline that can bind them like trapped birds. All day they say, sew clothes we'll wear. A woman stitches another shirt, and a robin flies past my window with a dangling thread in its beak.
That's neat.
This is a new one I've never tried reading before. It's really 2 poems and they're interlinked. So one line, one line, one line. And it's dedicated to Tom McCone, who's here tonight, and he'll know why when he hears it. Puzzle. Circuitare Italia, 1,000-piece puzzle. It's always a puzzle at first. Deep blue sea, harbor surrounded by stone bluffs. Sorting the pieces, first edges, peach and purple sunset. There are days when I turn on the news. Village perched on a rocky outcrop. Feel puzzled by so much strife. Houses of red, blue, yellow, and white. Sort colors. Terraced homes with tiled roofs. World rife with conflict. Patios, stored dories, bombs and drones. Balconies high above the sea. Climate hotter each day. No cars or roads in the puzzle, if we make it long enough. Gardens high on the precipice. All this will puzzle our great-grandchildren. Laundry on a balcony clothesline. I try to make sense of the pieces.
Yeah.
Thank you. And a couple more from my book. Montague's Convenience Store sells gasoline, diesel, most everything. 3 lunch trucks are lined up by the river. Each morning they leave to sell coffee, donuts, soup, and sandwiches in factory parking lots and construction sites. Outside the store sits a crate of free books. On top awaits Romeo and Juliet in perfect condition. They'd have been happier just working here. An ordinary day, Juliet makes sandwiches for the lunch run. Romeo makes coffee, takes credit cards. Juliet hauls trash out to the bins by the river. She calls out, "Ophelia, stay away from the edge." But no way is Ophelia going near the water. She's just watching her Honda gassing up. Hamlet's in the front seat tending the kids. Juliet loads coffee, soup, sandwiches, and donuts. Now Gertrude's at work, doing an extra 4-hour shift since she dumped Claudius. From her truck, Juliet blows a kiss. "See you tonight, Romeo, sweetie. Don't kill yourself. T-Ball will be here soon. Love you. See you tonight, Juliet." Juliet eases the lunch truck carefully around barriers at a construction site, honks twice, her horn like trumpets. The steel workers first in line. Here comes the lady. Oh, so light of foot. Juliet pours his coffee. This fox walks into a poem. Around the bar stand a wolf, a vulture, a crow, and 2 rabbits. On the villanelle lounge a boa constrictor, a couple of chinchillas, and 3 cats. "What are you doing here?" the crow asks. "May I ask what you're doing here?" Fox replies. "Oh, we all symbolize something or other," says boa. A raven sextet plays another rondo redouble. Crow crows along a little off key. "Well, I gotta take a whiz," wolf howls and heads for the John door. He's lifting his leg to piss in the villanelle when Fox comes in. "This place is one big metaphor." "Tell me," Wolf snaps, lowering his leg. "I can't stand it." "How come she put you in the poem?" one of the cats asks Fox. "Oh, she needed something to rhyme with locks or talks and keep her pentameter, I guess." Now the boa is hitting on one of the chinchillas, but she knows he's only after oral sex. "Last stanza," bartender calls, closing in 4 lines. Fox orders another round, talks over the music. As the Ravens play their last number, they all finish with tequila sestinas as the poet locks the back door. Thanks.
Oh, that was so fun, George. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Oh my God. Last dance. If we could all unmute and give an applause, heartfelt to George for those
That was great.
And yes, be sure to check out his reading along with those other kind of environmental poets coming up with PoemCity as well. April 26th, George.
Yeah, it's all on the Kellogg-Hubbard Library PoemCity webpage.
Amazing. And that leads us right into to David. So on deck is going to be Patty with a couple poems. And right now, David Harnett. I don't know much about David, but I'm excited to get to know you. And I understand that David will be, I think, hosting an Irish poetry reading on April 24th. So let's welcome this amazing David Harnett.
Thank you. Can you hear me at this point? I don't know. I've got to check the sound system. I have no idea whether it's projecting.
We got you loud and clear.
Okay, so I'll answer your first question, which is an introduction to I don't want to say almost dead poets, but many of them are. But it is before Yeats and beyond Heaney, both of whom are, we all know about them. So when I attempted to learn the Irish language, I decided I would climb into current poetry and found some amazing poets. So I just really wanted to share with people what, and introduce them and then stand out of the way. So that's that. There are roughly eight poets, and some of them, most folks who are familiar with Irish poetry, but hopefully there might be maybe one person that you hadn't encountered yet. And that in itself would be worth the reward. When I'm writing poetry, I use the pen name Dahi, which is just another name for David. The reading that opened up for PoemCity, I read the poem that's in the book, so I'll read two. I lied, I was going to read only one, but since there's enough time, I'll read two. In the anthology, which is just it's a wonderful anthology that's printed, and it includes kids like third, fourth graders. I love it. I think it's just sort of like, old and young musicians getting together. So enough of that. At any rate, the first one goes back a long ways, and it is actually a story that my wife's grandfather told us a long time ago. And he's in Exeter, New Hampshire, so I snuck over the border on this one. Spring chicken. He could not tell the story without confusing birds with men or men with boys. I mean, confusing birds with men or men with boys. There were two of each. That he knew for sure. But which one he was, or when, or where got mixed. Both had a mangled fowl racked by a wheel of wooden or iron spokes under older hands whose sputtering engine tottered on clipped bones. In one, he was a boy whose chicken had been mauled. In the other, he was a man handing over a limp dollar to another boy. What he remembered always was that dust and death rode the macadam on any given day. last year I wanted, thank you. Last year I wanted to join the slew of poets that congregate, amass, occupy the city of Montpelier during the month of PoemCity. But I was coming back after visiting my daughter in British Columbia, and it was not meant for me. This is probably, Carol would like to know this as well. It happens. I caught COVID after I arrived back home, and I had been vaccinated and boosted and everything. So fortunately, I lived to be here this year and today. So I'm thankful for that. But I did miss out like Carol did. I can empathize with Carol on that. All right, this is the last poem I'm going to read. And I guess this is, we're dealing with some doggerel poems because at least 3 of us have picked dogs, and this one is called Morning Messages. Every morning he sits and stares through a glass window glazed. When he tires of that, he takes me for a promenade. I try to show him obvious signs. The yellow, jagged sunbursts of dandelions exploding in their own private universe. The shagbark tree whose bark proclaims, I am not your poem. I remain irregular, asymmetric. One special day, I even uncovered a message left on a Johnny jump up in a trace of pollen announcing, Emily, I have returned. He remained unmoved. So I did not share the dewy message from Lou, that sleekest of black labs. Oh, it said, let's rendezvous behind the lilacs. Only Walt will ever know. My poor lost poet peeks at his watch, nibbles on his pin, then pulls on my leash. He has lost all lines and leads to the morning messages of this most glorious day.
Wow, what a glorious poem. Please give it up for David Hartnett.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you, thank you. Well, I appreciate, as someone who used to live in Galway, Ireland, I appreciate the uplifting of Irish poets as well, and the collaborations often that can happen among different cultures. So thank you so much, David, for bringing that to Montpelier. And we're gonna have another Montpelier, I think, poet, Patty, and then on deck we've got a special poet who will also be sharing, Lucinda Clark on deck. But I don't know Patty so well, but again, excited to learn. So Patty, tell us a little bit about yourself, all the way from Montpelier. Let's give a warm welcome, unmute, and please let's give some love to Patty Joslin.
Wow, appreciate the love. Well, I need the love. We all need the love. Thank you. It's nice to be here. Yes, I live in Montpelier. She, her, me. I'm going to read 3 pieces if I may. I'm going to start with PoemCity, page 120, I think. It's at the Senior Center and it's called Bingo. No, it's not. It's called B is for Brave and Bold. It's a bingo card. I don't know if you all have seen it, but it's my bingo card from my grandmother. B for Brave and Bold, a woman who went blind from, I get emotional. Okay, this is from my grandmother. B for Brave and Bold, a woman who went blind from too much seeing. The way I remember it, great grandma Annie started the obsession. 2 thick red ink blotters carried in her brick of a pocketbook. She wore the suede leather bag like a weapon under her crepe paper arm. I, integrity, independence, never allowing another woman to clean her house. N, for negotiations, always one to offer a distraction from pain, ill ease, or too much fun. G, a grand matron of lodge and love. I took to the bingo fever at a young age. Grandma Annie and I played in every basement of every church in every town. O, her smudged mouth, her win or not. Small porcelain balls rattled in the metal cage while she sat perched on a folding chair, jawing sticky sweets of juicy fruit, gum, and raking her blunt fingernails across a worn tabletop. And always the white powdered donuts sat at the ready, me licking my skinny girl lips, waiting for my number to be called. That was a little rough reading there, but I'm gonna go again because I did a great workshop with Sam Stockwell, 4 prompts, 4 poems. And this was one of the prompts. It was a great workshop. It was right here across the way, really close to me. And the prompt was about a poem called Motherhood. And the question that Sam asked is, what do I want to find? And this is my response. And this is, again, pretty raw. It's written just last week. And appreciate you listening to it. I want to find home again, still. A big mission for a little old me. Home not in place or space, home not in here or there, not in before, after, or when or how, but home as in peace, contentment, the breathing of ease and knowing I'm exactly who I am. I came into the world as a number 2, second daughter to Jackie and Fran. There were 2 after me. We slept in canopied beds, ate fish on Fridays, had a milkman, and stands of paper white birch trees in the woods that surrounded us. Lady slippers grew next to ferns and moss we used as safety. We drew treasure maps and hid them in pickle jars for later. From a clothesline hung underpants and bathing suits. Through a path under pine trees, sticky with sap and spider webs, we walked to Grandma and Grandpa's for hot dogs and beans and vanilla pudding. Across the road, we kept horses in a fenced field. They stood at the barbed wire and ate sugar from our lips. They nibbled. Their muzzles were velvet, like our winter coats. And still, I want to know this time is forever, as home. It slips through my veins like water, turning my blood cold. And then lastly, if I may, it's funny, I have a little grammar thing going on, but this is actually from a book of mine called Ruminate, Meditations on Mystical Wisdoms. It's prompted from first lines from the poet Daniel Ladinsky, who was well, never mind. A lot of back talk here. It's really short. All has been consecrated, and now it's time for the forgiving. In the church I was in yesterday, I looked around for the box called confessional. Imagined the stories told on bent knees, the loin of velvet hanging between incense and yesterdays. I remembered a long time ago, my back to the door, whispering a prayer to the unseen woman named Mary, full of grace. Thank you. Thank you all.
Please unmute and put your hands together for Patty. Oh, who else just loved that bingo idea, that formatting? Yes. Oh, I love it.
I was glad I had the book so I could actually see how you laid that out, Patty. Amazing. Yeah, there it is.
Thank you, Elizabeth, for showing us. Yes, and that just is another reason why everyone has to pick up their PoemCity anthology copy. So I'm just gonna put a link in the chat now in case you're not a PSOV member. Please consider joining. And I want to welcome, so I want to thank everyone for reading, and I want to welcome a special guest, Lucinda J. Clark, who will give us a poem, and then I'll close out with a poem, I think, for tonight. But Lucinda is the founder of Poetry Matters Project and is all the way in Georgia and is actually the president of the Georgia Poetry Society and is reading a Vermont poet who will be reading with George Geza, I believe. But Lucinda is so prolific and has written View from the Middle of the Road series and been in those anthologies, as well as just an amazing spoken word poet, and has worked with so many poets across the educational spectrum and really uplifts poets. So I love having new voices and new partnerships. And so we are very honored, and let's put our hands together to welcome Lucinda J. Clark.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me, Bianca. Well, I'm just glad that I was able to make it before you guys closed out. I bring greetings from the great state of Georgia. We are here celebrating Poetry Month. We just had our quarterly meeting where we simulcast from Atlanta, Augusta, and Savannah. If you get a chance, we'll be posting the reading, I guess, in about a week or so. But you can always visit Georgia Poetry Society. We're on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. I needed to do all of that because Marion, our PR guy, would say, "Did you tell him? Did you say it?" I'm here today because of Bianca. She asked me if I wanted to read, and I was able to pull something based on what I heard some of you reading. It seemed like dogs were the prominent theme by the time I had checked in. So the first poem I'm going to read is a dedication to my daughter's dog, Harry, who passed away right after a couple of years after she went to college. It's titled Mama Too, it's Harry. I wanted you to know, I always knew from the first day I laid eyes on you and Mama JCC, we were gonna be something special. The ladies from the shelter told you my name was Henry. I was a skinny thing set way back in the corner of my cage with all the happy, friendly dogs yapping for your favor. You were kind enough to let Mama JCC bring me home, even though your eyes kept wandering over to what you thought would be a better choice. You trusted Mama JCC's instincts. Thanks for that. When Mama JCC, that's my daughter Jessica, taught me how to open all the doors and escape on adventures, I knew you were just pretending to be mad. To make sure I learned all those tricks you taught me, I think that helped you overlook my self-walks. Well, eventually I appreciated the heart-to-hearts we had as Mama and Papa X prepared to go off to college. Sorry for tearing things up. I was mad when you told me I could not go to Arizona, and sleeping in the bed with you was never gonna happen. I thank Mishu for helping me with that. We grew closer. If you don't believe me, check out all of the family pics. You always let me know when Mama was coming home and showed me places on the map as she became a world traveler. Tell Daddy Man and Papa X, I always appreciated those cheese treats and walks and the encouragement to run free. Thanks for stepping up when you knew it was time for me to finally go and allowing me to go with dignity. I'm gonna sit down and roll over just like in the old days, pain-free. Thanks for the love. Don't miss me, because we now dwell in each other's hearts. I think you call it memories. When you think of me now, know I'm off on my biggest, best adventure. Bye.
Please unmute and give it up for Lucinda's dog poem. Oh.
Okay, okay, thank you, thank you. Now, you all know that down here in Augusta, Georgia, that's where I am, Augusta, Georgia, you know that it's Poetry Month everywhere else in the world, but down here, the first week we have what you call the Masters. Have you heard of it? Okay, thank you, thank you, thank you for that. For those of you who haven't, it pertains to golf. And so one year, before I actually became well, avid follower, because I really watched this year, it was fabulous. And I've actually gone out to the golf course and it's beautiful. I wrote a poem titled Alien Observation 2. It's part of a 2-part series and it's titled Golf. I want to share with you what I learned about a game. No, that's not right. A sport that is very popular amongst a certain set. I may have misidentified it because depending on whom you believe, it's described as a game, a sport, like religion, and a weekend widowmaker. It involves things like bunkers, greens, and fairways, tees and sand traps, carts and foursomes, drivers, irons, putters, and a tiny white ball. It ends after 18 holes with par 3s, par 5s, and lots of water. That little ball is chipped, birdied, bogeyed, driven, hold in one. This last one gets a player real excited. It's played in country clubs, on beaches, on recycled landfills, in swamp-like areas with alligators, and in beautiful places like Augusta. I was told that at one time only rich guys played. Now all kinds of guys do, and lots of women too. Even children play. It has heroes and legends and chokers like Arnie, Jack, and Tiger, and one called Greg the Shark. At first, I thought it was all about striking a tiny white ball many times over and small distances for hours. Then I went out to where they play and learned it's a solo player with a bag of clubs and a tiny white ball out in jaw-droppingly beautiful natural setting, battling to be his best self. And so this one's real short. It's keeping on the golf, on the national golf theme. I don't know if you all know who Sergio Garcia is. You know? Okay, thank you, thank you. Sergio Garcia was a golfer who, he came with a horrible reputation and he won the Masters. And so I actually watched that game and it was so inspiring. This is the short poem that came out of it. It's called Sergio Garcia and the Golf Gods. He strolls up to the 15th hole, 74 tries at being the first in his head, 74 failures to snatch the prize. He calls on his golf ancestors to step in and intercede on his behalf, just once on this special day. Because the vengeful golf gods had gathered, they were there determined to make it failure 75. They intended to succeed again at the Masters and putting Sergio's face in the dust of defeat. This time they failed. Thank you. Thank you for hearing this thing. I was gonna say, we invite you all anytime you'd like to come on down and do a Zoom with us here in Georgia. I'll let you know, Bianca, you share with the group. And it's a pleasure working with Geza. I've known him for many years and he's a fine poet and an excellent writer. And I don't see him here tonight, but give him my regards.
He's still in Kenya, Lucinda.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, but he'll be back next week.
Next week. Okay. Well, I will check in. Thank you
Thank
for
you
having.
so much. Thank you so
I'll
much.
tell them you were here.
Thank you, George. Yes,
Thank-
and it really celebrates, right, Vermont poets. We're just so loved, and like this community, and to collaborate and just to be open. So thank you so much, Lucinda. And I love Elizabeth's comment around the golf the golf poems, right? This is a rare. I don't think I've ever heard golf poems. So, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you. So I actually did we do everyone? I just want to make sure, because some other folks, we've got just a couple of minutes. I have one poem that can end us, but I just want to thank, and I just seeing Will, Carol, Sarah, and Tom, and Martha, maybe. Thank you also for joining and for listening. And if you aren't already a PSOV member, I invite you to become one. And if you are a Poetry Society of Vermont member, thank you so much. And hopefully we can all see each other in person in May. If you're not yet registered for our spring workshop, that is again May 13th. And I want to thank the Kellogg-Hubbard Library and PoemCity for really putting a spotlight on poetry this month, and for bringing so many people together, which is what tonight allowed us to celebrate, and I thank you. So I'm just going to close out with a poem, and I wish everyone a beautiful rest of National Poetry Month. So this is the poem that is in the PoemCity anthology, which again, I cannot wait to tackle with excitement. And this is called To Practice Dying. To practice dying. I never made the request, and yet my father prays for me, asks if I pray, says his faith has been waiting, that it's late. I'm not sure my faith is that present, is that patient. See, I call the farmer's market my church. Every Saturday, I break bread with Neil, the tall sourdough baker with B.O. I drink the blood of Yoder over apple cider vinegar shots. We discuss the existence of aliens. I pass the basket, sing hymns and praises to Greg's chickens, for they have the brightest yolks. Offer myself up to bouquets of kale and feel my spirit lifted, lighter. I imagine this is what my father, who may not have any more practices left, seeks. He visited me just once at home. I brought him to pray at my church on a still day. Sunshine played the tambourine, wind licked raw milk gelato, and sweating, he complained, too hot. Kneel down as if to put palm to palm and put cigarette to sneaker. We stood on smoke, close but untouchable. Yesterday, he tells me he is not afraid of death. In the same breath that I am his pride and joy. After all, I am the daughter who doesn't ask of much, but sticks around. He wonders if I would understand a letter he has penned, but not sent. I could question the same, but then he reminds me it wasn't until he was in his 40s before he heard, I love you, from grandfather, Anuk, or otherwise, that he knows trust that all he has is truth.
Mm.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, all of our readers. Thank you, Elizabeth and Dee, Avery, Robin, Carol, George, David, Patty, Lucinda, and all of our beautiful listeners. Happy National Poetry Month.